Today we'll be covering toxicology and poisoning from SLO 1, covering for both MRCEM and FRCEM. Pretty much the same things. There's not a lot of difference. But as we go through the lecture, you will find some key differences I mentioned separately, and you be the judge and decide. We'll try our best to make this as easy to understand and remember as we go along. So please pay attention. If you are in the habit of making notes, I'd suggest grab a pen and paper and write down the important stuff so that you can revise it later. If you're somebody who likes taking screenshots, do take screenshots. However, please don't be so wrapped up in taking screenshots that you're not listening, because SBA is all about concepts. And if you're not listening to the concept and just busy taking screenshots, you're wasting time. This is a recording. You'll always be able to hear it again and again. So screenshots can wait. For the first time, please listen to it with full attention. Okay, thank you. All right, let's start. So toxicology and poisoning, this is part 1 of 4 series we're going to do for this one. I wanted to do it in one, but because it's an important topic, you're going to see it in many forms in your exam. So I thought I'd break it down into chunks. So first, we're going to lay down the foundation. Then we're going to build up with specific toxicologies that might overlap with other SLOs. And then eventually, we're going to do some MCQs just to see how the concepts are sitting. Okay. So first up is just general approach to poisoning in your emergency departments. Acute poisoning will account for about 100,000 hospital admissions annually in the UK, with over 4,000 deaths per year in England and Wales. Now, the majority of poisonings do happen at home, which can involve some drugs, chemicals, household products, but mostly it's prescriptions that are someone else's that they have gotten hold of. Now, it can be children, it can be somebody who's depressed and wanted to end their life. It could be either way. Poisoning should be suspected in any patient with unexplained metabolic derangement, cardiovascular instability, respiratory failure, altered behavior, or reduced consciousness. Now, all cases of poisoning require, number 1, resuscitation, then risk assessment, then you want to figure out what substance they've taken, and then specific treatment and period of observation. These are some of the toxidromes that you might be familiar with when you were giving your MRCEM primary. So we're just going to build up on those concepts. So you have a few toxidromes. You've got anticholinergic, cholinergic, opioid, salicylate, and serotonin syndrome. So anticholinergic common agents would be atropine, antihistamine, and TCAs. TCAs are really important for the exam. Clinically, you might see, very important, with anticholinergic, you will see delirium, dilated pupils, dry skin, urinary retention, hyperthermia, and tachycardia. So they're dry all over, okay? D for dry, D for delirium, and D for dilated. That's what you want to remember, okay? So dry, dilated pupils, delirium, that's anticholinergic. Management is physostigmine, benzodiazepines, and cooling. And obviously, you want to remember organification. You have to give physostigmine before organification happens. Then you've got cholinergic. Cholinergic is when everything's a problem, excretion-wise. So you've got, excretions coming out from everywhere. It's all wet. So organophosphate and carbamates. Clinical features, sludge symptoms, muscle weakness, and bronchuria. Hopefully you all remember what sludge symptoms are. I'm going to give you a few seconds to see if you can remember, or tell me what the sludge symptoms are for cholinergic in the comments. Okay, so S is for, like I said, everywhere secretions are coming out, right? So S is for salivation, L is for lacrimation, U is for urination, D is for defecation, G is for gastrointestinal distress, and then E is for emesis, okay? Management-wise, you want to give atropine, pralidoxime, airway protection. Okay, opioids. Heroin, morphine, and fentanyl are common agents. Clinically, you will say CNS or respiratory depression, pinpoint pupils, and hypotension. That's important. Naloxone, you want to give that as management plan, airway protection, and ventilation. Then you've got salicylate. Salicylate, common example is aspirin. You see metabolic acidosis, respiratory alkalosis, tinnitus, tachypnea, and hyperthermia. Management-wise, you will say you will use activated charcoal within the first hour. Then alkalinization to get rid of it in the urine, and eventually hemodialysis. The metabolic derangement in salicylate is often tested, so be aware of that. Serotonin syndrome, SSRIs, MAO, TCA, and tramadol common agents. Clinically, you will say hyperreflexia, clonus, hypothermia, and altered mental status. This is really important. The clonus that you see with serotonin syndrome is what differentiates it from neuroleptic malignant syndrome. This is very high yield, commonly tested. That clonus is ankle clonus, most importantly, that you will see in your MCQ stem, so please be aware of it. Management-wise, cooling, benzodiazepine, and cyproheptadine. Okay. Right, last one is sympathomimetic, where it is a cocaine and amphetamines. Here as well, you will see dilated pupils with hypothermia, agitation, tachycardia, and hypertension. However, with sympathomimetic, you will not see the dryness. Okay? With anticholinergic, it's dry, dilated pupils. With sympathomimetic, it's not dry, it's just dilated pupils. Management-wise, cooling, benzodiazepines, and IV. But the IV fluids you want to be careful of because of the high blood pressure. It's kind of like a, how do you say it? With IV fluids, it's case dependent. You want to see how you want to maneuver this. Gastrointestinal decontamination can be done with activated charcoal within 1 hour of ingestion for absorbable toxins like paracetamol, TCAs, aspirin. The dose is usually 50 grams for adults, and in kids, we use 1 gram per kg, may be repeated for enterohepatic toxins like carbamazepine, theophylline, and phenobarb. Contraindication is an unprotected airway. You always want to make sure that there's an NG in and the airway is protected. Corrosives, hydrocarbons, metals, and alcohols, you do not want to use activated charcoal for. Gastric lavage, rarely indicated, only for massive life-threatening ingestions within 1 hour. Contraindications would include corrosive ingestions, hydrocarbons, unprotected airway. Okay. Whole bowel irrigation. Indications include sustained release drugs, iron, lithium, and body packers. Contraindications would be ileus, bowel obstruction, and hemodynamic instability. Okay. Obviously, let's just break this down in the form of a concept. You do not want to contaminate the gut when you know that whatever agent they've taken, if it comes back up, it's going to cause more damage, okay? So anything that's corrosive, you want to let it be. Either neutralize it and get rid of it. Do not just make it come back up. That's just bad choice. For whole bowel irrigation, obviously, whenever you're irrigating the bowel, you cannot do that for somebody where the bowel is stuck, right? So it's an understood thing that for whole bowel irrigation, the bowel has to be working. Anybody with bowel obstruction or ileus is not going to benefit from whole bowel irrigation, right? Why hemodynamic instability? The reason is when you do whole bowel irrigation, it's cold water usually that we use, or cold fluids, for example, and the blood goes to the gut. Somebody with who's already hemodynamically unstable will collapse. So be careful. Also, with unstable patients, you don't want to do something like that anyway. Why would somebody with unstable vitals would not have ABC as a priority, and you're doing whole bowel irrigation anyway? So yeah, wouldn't do it. Enhancing elimination. So there are other ways of getting rid of it, right? One of them is urinary alkalinization, where some agents get a charge when you put them in an acid or a basic environment. And a charged particle cannot go back in, right? That's your primary concept. Let's build on it. Any charged particle will not go back in. So salicylates, bad when they're not charged. We just put a charge on it and we get rid of it in the urine. Phenobarb, again, put a charge on it, get rid of it in the urine. Chloropropamide, put a charge on it, you get rid of it in the urine. Simple. Make the urine alkaline, you put a charge on these molecules, drugs, and then you can get rid of it. Hemodialysis. Now, hemodialysis, let's just go back to primary concept again. We studied volume of distribution. Anything with a low volume of distribution that's actually staying in your blood, very good to remove by dialysis, right? That's what we studied in primary. So let's build on it. Hemodialysis, we're going to use it for all those that are in the blood for a long period of time, like your alcohols, methanol, ethylene glycol, lithium, and severe salicylate toxicity, even more so. In case of like severe toxicity, you want to use hemodialysis. It's better. It's a better option. Lipid emulsion therapy. Now, this is specific for local anesthesia toxicity. However, we can also use it for some other drugs like TCAs and calcium channel blockers. And the reason is that these are lipid soluble. Anything that's lipid soluble, lipid emulsion is going to grab it and make it sink, right? That's what they do with the local anesthesia, isn't it? They make a lipid sink. That's the concept. So what it does is it grabs it like Pac-Man. If you've seen Pac-Man, it just grabs it and then it just makes it useless. It's just sitting there doing nothing. So it cannot act on the receptors. It cannot block anything. It cannot cause any problems because it's just neutralized in that form. Okay. Now let's talk about common antidotes. Paracetamol. I feel like you all can do this with me. So just keep shouting out the antidotes along with me. That works. So paracetamol and acetylcysteine. And we use the SMAP protocol. We'll cover it a little bit later on. Don't worry. You've got opioids, morphine, heroin, fentanyl. The antidote is naloxone, benzodiazepine. We can give, okay, so naloxone here, it says IVIM. We also have intranasal, by the way. We can use intranasal as well. Benzodiazepines, flumazenil, rarely used, seizure risk. Now, the thing is, benzodiazepine, if it's a purely benzodiazepine overdose, yes, we can use flumazenil. However, if it's a mixed overdose, or there's a suspicion they might have taken something else, you never give flumazenil. Okay, why? Because of the seizure risk. It will lower the threshold for seizures in these patients. Beta blockers, glucagon is your antidote, and high dose insulin therapy, very important. TCA, bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, and you monitor the QRS widening for response. Digoxin, you have Digibind or Digifab, because if it's high volume of distribution, it can go into the tissues, and we need to grab it from the tissues and get it out of the body. So that's why we use Digibind. Organophosphates, we have atropine and valdoxime. For methanol and ethylene glycol, we give fomepizole or ethanol itself, and eventually hemodialysis. For carbon monoxide, we use 100% oxygen or hyperbaric oxygen if need be. For cyanide, we use hydroxycobalamin or sodium thiosulfate. Okay, now let's go through the algorithm. So the ED approach, airway comes first. Whenever they're mentioning something in the MCQ about poisoning, please remember your ABCs and read which step are you in the algorithm. If they've done the airway and they're asking what's next, go to breathing. If they've done that, go to circulation. If they've done that, go on and so forth. Okay, so airway, protect the airway, consider early intubation if GCS is less than 8 or high exposure risk. Breathing, assess respiratory rate again. Saturation, ABG, if there's metabolic derangement suspected. I would still suggest going for an ABG anyway if they have low SATs. Circulation, IV access, ECG, you want to rule out cardiac toxins, blood pressure, cap refill, and IV fluids. You also want to send bloods. That doesn't say. So investigations are a bit down here, but I would probably take the blood sample here before giving fluids. You want to take the samples. Otherwise, it can mess up with like alcohol kind of stuff. And also add glucose. Oh, it's in D. Never mind. Okay, so disability, you've got GCS, pupil size. You want to look at meiosis or mydriasis just to see which toxidrome you fit into and check blood glucose. Exposure, you want to do the toxidrome recognition, skin examination, and temperature. especially if it's organophosphate poisoning, you want to get rid of all the clothes. It can still be absorbed from the clothes, you want to get rid of them. Investigations. Now you want to check the PCM levels, mandatory in all adults. You want to check the full tox screen with salicylate levels, ECG, ABG, probably want to do renal function tests as well to check if it's affected the kidneys or are the kidneys working or not to figure out if the body will be able to get rid of it or not. Liver function test in case of PCM. So for different toxicologies, you have different kind of tests that you want to check to see if they have started organ damage. Decontamination, again, with activated charcoal within 1 hour if indicated. Whole barrel irrigation is for lithium, iron, body packers. Okay. Sorry, what's going on? All right. Good. Enhanced elimination can be done, and then disposition, deciding where you're going to give these patients off to. Okay, so these are a few SBA pearls. So activated charcoal is within 1 hour of ingestion, and they can ask you the dose. For paracetamol level, mandatory in all adults at 4 hours post-ingestion. Organophosphate, you want to remember the sludge Toxidrome, atropine first, then peroxide. Flumazenil, contraindicated in chronic benzodiazepine users, precipitates withdrawal seizures. Anticholinergic Toxidrome, you want to remember dry, hot, dilated, dry as a bone, red as bait, mad as a hatter. Carbon monoxide poisoning, pulse oximetry, unreliable. Carboxyhemoglobin levels, you want to check with ABG. For whole bowel irrigation, your indications are sustained release drugs, iron, lithium, body packers. For FRChem, they can ask you about lipid emulsion and its dose, 1.5 ml per kg bolus for local anesthetic systemic toxicity. Hemodialysis will remove methanol, ethylene glycol, lithium, severe salicylates, but it will not get rid of digoxin, TCAs. And the reason is, again, digoxin volume of distribution is high, it goes into the tissues. TCAs are lipophilic. Urinary alkalinization, the target pH is 7.5 to 8.5, but you want to correct hyperkalemia first. Potassium has to be more than 4 to be able to do this. MDAC, which is multiple dose activated charcoal. We can use this for a few, very few drugs. Some of these are carbamazepine, theophylline, phenobarb, and dapsone. Toxicology screen. For urine, we do this for opioids, benzodiazepines, cocaine, and amphetamine. Now remember, never delay resuscitation for decontamination procedures. In organophosphate poisoning, protect healthcare workers before patient care, so PPE first. In cyanide poisoning, you want to give the antidote immediately without awaiting confirmatory levels, okay? Now let's talk about accidental poisoning in the ED. Accidental poisoning is a frequent